the business realized that now, because they were improving all this data, they were able to fix all these problems in production quicker, so they have more production. And more production means at the end more business. So the point is that instead of focusing just in reducing costs, because it's so easy to cut your headcount by 20%, thinking that everything is going to work in the same way, what they did was focusing in less waste, reducing the waste of their processes. And by reducing the waste of their processes, they were able to reduce the cost of the operation. Okay? And the second part, they were able to add more value to the business. They started becoming really a more strategic part of the business, not just a unit that is reducing the cost. Okay? If we think about, the way that they did this, they started with a reactive data governance. Okay? Basically, I found what is wrong. I find what is wrong in my system. I analyze. I fix it. Okay? Okay? I can just keep doing that, and that will be great. But if you want really to evolve, you want to go to a better approach. You want to start doing things before they happen. Okay? So they started thinking about, okay, what are the lessons learned that we have here? And how we can move from reactive to proactive. And this was the second step, when they really decided that they were going to start, instead of just allowing users to put data into the system and let's later fix whatever errors we have, they started putting this, what they call, data quality firewall. Okay, so they put rules before you can put all your data into your ERP, and with this you can prevent a lot of errors getting into your ERP. Of course, you cannot start running before you are crawling or walking. Okay, so that was the key point for them. First, let's just fix what is wrong, let's get more productivity, and then let's have time to start improving our processes. And how does Winshuttle fits into this? If we think about all those data activities that we have in our companies, okay, because we are spending a lot of time in front of the blue screen of SAP or the red screen of Oracle, we can think about things that are low complexity, low volume, so it makes sense that we keep it manual because you are not going to invest in something that is happening a few times and is not requiring a lot of work. And we have stuff that is extremely complicated and extremely, in big volumes. And it makes sense that you implement big solutions. For example, if you want to have, a better demand planning system, whatever, you invest in a system that is specific for that. But the gap that we see in the business is that between this and this, you have a big space for continuous improvement, where if you go to IT to ask for solutions, they will give you they have a big backlog, okay? The cost will be very high, and if you want to keep this continuously improving, it's going to cost you a lot. So this is the place where Winshuttle fits, okay? We are, as we have there, the fast and flexible approach to improve your ERP or SAP data operations and to really allow you to implement continuous improvement, okay? So looping back to those three numbers we have, remember 50% of inefficiency, 50% of them were being asked to add more value and become more strategic, and 80% thinks that ERP is stopping their improvement. If we get back to that, well, what we have seen in our customers is that with our tools, they can really get back and apply lean, okay, and continuous improvement to their ERP. And they can start improving the quality of their processes, so they can reduce that percentage of inefficiency that they have in their processes, because they can then start improving their SLAs, and they can give a competitive advantage to the business. They can become more strategic, and more important, you can really start mixing your ERP and continuous improvement, something that right now seems like you cannot do because it's so rigid, okay? And all this is basically with the Winshuttle approach. That is about this, data collection, ensure that you collect all the data that you need, that you validate and you have all the data in the right way, and ensure that it is ending in SAP, okay? So we are Winshuttle, just to commend you. We are based in Seattle. We have offices, in different countries, and we are, very happy about this number, okay? It's something that I always like to emphasize, and this is based in our customers, feedback. So, if you have any additional question about us as a company, feel free to catch me and ask us. And now I'm going to pass to Evan, that is going to talk about one of our customers, Smith & Nephew, and is going to review their story in detail.
Thank you, Israel. So again, what I'd like to do is maybe a slightly deeper dive on a customer case study. Smith & Nephew, for those of you who may not be familiar with the name, they're in the medical device or medical technology industry. You can see some of the statistics here. About 11,000 employees, touching about 90 countries, just over $4 billion in revenue. So pretty good size organization. The person who helped us put this presentation together, and the person who's really been, if you will, a key champion of Winshuttle within the organization, is Melissa Hollingsworth. And Melissa wasn't able to join us today, so she's put this together for us. What I would say is we've got a few minutes at the end for questions and answers, and we'll do our best to answer any questions. But she's also willing to take any questions. So she's a really great resource. If what I've talked about today resonates, I'd encourage you to reach out to her for further validation and Q&A, if you will. So what was the challenge they were facing? And I'll ask a question to the room, right? They were doing what we see a lot of customers doing, right? They had a process for managing master data, which was effectively spreadsheet driven, using email as a de facto workflow system, and all the challenges that come along with that. So can I ask first off, just to show of hands, how many people today use email as the de facto workflow system in the organization? Maybe sending Word documents or spreadsheets around. Challenges? Yeah, does it create challenges? I'm assuming it does, right? And here's some of the challenges that it created for them, right? If you think about it, right, it's not surprising. Because it's email, that's your workflow engine, you have no real visibility to where you're at in the process. You have no control, no governance over that. So it could be that half the time a process finishes in 3 days, and the other half the time it's anywhere from 3 days to 3 weeks. And whether it's because somebody's on holiday and there's no way to accelerate that process or have visibility to the fact they're on holiday and kick it on, it's a big problem, right? Likewise, because that approach is disconnected, if you will, from the system of record that ultimately it's supposed to go into, one of the real challenges they had was around, okay, we've got this process. We know we've got 3 different people involved. I'm going to start the process as a user. I'm going to email it to the next person. They'll email it on. As I'm putting my data in, if it's disconnected from the system of record, one of the challenges there is the fact that I can't validate the data as I'm entering it in, right? And so one of the issues you end up with is you'll get to the end of that process and realize, well, actually the data that supposedly is complete and should now be put into the system of record actually has errors in it. And now I need to go right back through that process, correct those errors, and then ultimately get it back into the system of record, in this case SAP, right? And so what we sometimes refer to as data ping pong, right? That iterative nature of taking that approach really creates a bunch of issues with regards to timing, effort, consistency, data quality, et cetera, right? And ultimately the final thing there was really around, hey, because they were manually entering it in, they'd get to the end of the process. Once they finally completed the process, somebody else would have to manually enter it into SAP, so they had some duplicate effort there, right? So that was the challenges they were facing, yeah? What did they do with Winshuttle? Well, let me walk you through it. It's really what Israel highlighted there, right? The 3 core capabilities: data collection, data validation, and data movement. What does it mean in this example? Well, what it meant was, from a collection perspective, having the ability to define a Winshuttle-based form and workflow solution that says, hey, I know who all the participants are in the process. I'm going to define a workflow. I'm going to put it out there in the business. That will allow me to have complete control and visibility of the entire end-to-end process. So as we're going through the process, I know exactly what's in flight, where it's at, who it's with, how much has been completed. If there are any bottlenecks, I can see that, and I can accelerate the process if I need to, right? So all those reporting issues that you have when you use email as a de facto workflow system, that visibility, that governance, that's all taken off the table. Equally importantly, because of how Winshuttle works, we surface the capabilities of SAP through our solution. Well, what does that mean? From a pragmatic perspective, what it means is if I'm entering data into the solution, as I'm doing that, I can validate that data. And really what that fundamentally means is as you're going through the solution, instead of this back and forth like they had previously, it's effectively a path from start to finish, right? Because what you can do is make sure that what's being put in is correct as you're going along, so that when you get to the end of the process, it's a complete and accurate data set, which is then automatically moved into SAP. So again, you're avoiding that rekeying of data. That's what we mean when we talk about data collection, data validation, and data movement, and practically what it means from a process standpoint as far as the benefits that it delivers, right? So ultimately, again, it's a much more efficient process, and as a result, data quality goes up, right? Now, Israel talked about what does it mean to the business? Well, ultimately what it means to the business is less time doing what we oftentimes refer to as heavy lifting, right? Kind of core SAP data entry grunt work, which really doesn't add a lot of the value to the business, but needs to be done. So how do you minimize that effort so you can spend more time actually focusing on how do we run the business,